Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. More roster rumours going down last night, especially Com of Leviatan teasing who their fifth man is going to be. We thought maybe Aspas would return to the organisation. That now seems less likely. Zekken is in the replies, but there's a new name that has emerged as a key candidate here to round out Rostermania in North America. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Zoms back on the timeline for the first time in quite some time. Bit of drama as well. I know that Zeke has been tweeting a lot lately, and this is something that kind of frustrates him. Something going on with the chamber right now, of course. There's talk about chamber meta, whether it's going to come back, and there's some sort of glitch at the moment, it seems, where, well, your ADS and scope randomly unzooms. And right here, it's like, here we are on the Haven. I mean, it looks like he's nailed on to land this shot, but all of a sudden, the gun just decides, as he's about to shoot, to just un-ADS. And by the time it re-ADSes, then it's kind of too late to hit the angle, and then it gets tagged. And then from that point, it's obviously not gone to plan. So, yeah, Durka even, I think, in the replies here said he gets this all the time. And he says, yeah, have this all the time, he says. So, yeah, interesting stuff for sure. Vitality Durka still looks kind of strange, I will say. But that is now how it is. Also thought was kind of cool, the Game Changers World Championship is coming up soon. On multiple maps there are now, well, they're now signs promoting it to some degree. We can see one here November the 8th. Through to the 17th, of course, out there in Berlin. Here we are on the Binds, and the one that people had really noticed here was a couple, I think, on the Sunset. There's this logo here and in the window, and then you guys can see a similar thing right about here. So clearly Riot excited to obviously go there, see how it goes. And we will talk a little bit in the coming minutes about like the GC versus the Tier 2 scene versus Tier 1 and some of the drama associated with that situation at the moment. But let's talk about Rostermania, because a couple of things are going down. Fnatic are due to confirm their new roster apparently today. We know that Durka is long gone from the roster. He's now gone to Vitality. Fnatic considered some other options. There was considerations for Zeus as well, and of course Turkish player they were apparently looking at, but never went that far. And then of course Kajak, he's the guy that they're eventually going to be signing. We know that he was on the Apex team, and seemingly Fnatic probably looked to their roster and decided, okay, we've got to make some sort of change, maybe from a budget perspective as well, but more than likely they just didn't deliver success. I think even their coach did say this, so that they achieved a lot in 2023, and their salaries then reflected that going into 2024. Having not replicated that success, it was simply not sustainable to maintain the roster as it was. So I guess they then had to make a decision that they've got to make a change somewhere, and what are they going to do? They wanted to keep their in-game leader in Boaster, although of course that could be a matter for debate. Leo and Alpha likely wanted to stay. Chronicle, of course. So then maybe they felt like Durka was not, I mean, he was arguably their best player of the season, was certainly right up there in that conversation. He didn't have the greatest year, but towards the end of the year especially, Durka really turned up. I think the reality might be, unfortunately for Durka in that team, because I don't imagine he's happy to have been released from Fnatic as they've done, but like that role is maybe replaceable. There are plenty of very talented duelist players out there that could do a job like Durka did, and it's difficult to replicate Durka, but maybe that was Fnatic's feeling, that if there is a more replaceable role, Durka is the man in that role. So Kanjak's going to be the guy they get. Polish player, he was on the Apex team, has done very well, and it seems like this is October the 23rd. Tomorrow, therefore, means today, the 24th. So we'll see if they confirm anything soon. But let's talk about Lev, because their team is in quite a fascinating spot. They had all sorts of drama last December. You guys remember when the Noswa thing was going down, going into the new season. Aspas was then not so happy with the state of the team. He wanted to go after the year, go to Bleed, go to the Pacific, maybe go to China. That ain't gonna happen. Bleed haven't got any money anymore. They full collapse, and they're not even in the league anymore. And then the other teams maybe are not going down the Aspas route, and he's potentially going to go to MIBR instead. And likely Lev, of course, they got his replacement, right? They got Demon 1 off NRG. Probably to pay for that, they required some of Aspas's buyout. But of course, right now, Aspas isn't getting a buyout unless he is from somewhere. But it seems like he's not going to go back. Even Aspas's agent the other week came out and said that Aspas isn't opposed to coming back into Lev if they don't sell him, if nobody wants him to pay the buyout, because Lev, I'm sure, are asking a lot of money for that contract to be resolved. He will play for their starting roster if they want it, which they may not. They may have other plans, certainly if Aspas doesn't really want to. And then Com says, wow, wait until you guys hear who our fifth is. Zekken is in the replies as well, saying, okay, let's raise some trophies, but, as far as we understand, he's very much locked into Sentinels. There was one player that they were trialing, obviously, over the last few days. The rumor was that Lev is going to be Demon 1, Com, King, and Tex +1. And this Rubquoid player, Argentinian guy, was briefly spotted in one of their, seemingly it was a trial. But the understanding is no Aspas, and there hasn't really been too many other names linked there until today, when this player, Natank, formerly of Gentlemates, he has been heavily linked now to this Leviatan roster. So it's very interesting if that is the decision, because there are other talented players in the Americas they could be going for, but it seems like the plan is going to be to bring in an import from EMEA. Now, Natank was a great player for the Gentlemates team this most recent season. Probably their best player, you could argue, right? I mean, he didn't exactly, in terms of match results, have the greatest season ever, of course, because the team did not. But in the series they won, usually Natank was doing some damage. He was messing around a lot with different agents, right? I mean, typically on the KO or the Sova, something like that. But there's been series, I think even this one against Fit Esports, when, you know, I mean, he was on the Sage and the Rays this series. And then I think it was another one, he was on the Gecko. Like this series against KOI they played, he was again on the Sage and the Rays, and then this one against Giant X, he was on the Rays, the Sova, and the KO, and then this one against Heretics, I think he ran the Gecko, didn't he? Yeah, Rays, Gecko, Neon. So he's tried all sorts of agents. Whether it's worked well on all these agents, maybe not, but like on average, he has been one of their better players, if not their best player. So that is the rumor anyway, as to what's happening with Lev right now. Whether you guys think it's a good or a bad idea, time will tell. There's not really been, I will say, any like majorly credible sources coming out and saying this is a done deal. For some reason, this has emerged as a rumor, and I'm not exactly sure why, so it may not be true. But it's just kind of surprising that by this time, we don't really have anyone potentially rumored to this spot. And now, of course, that there is a rumor about it, at the very least, we're going to talk about it. Now, this was another big update yesterday from the Tier 2 scene. So, GoNext Esports, they have confirmed that, well, unfortunately, they are stepping down from Tier 2. Again, we see a big post here explaining why there are problems in the Riot Games ecosystem, certainly in that region, and they tried to do what they could to make this work, but it's just not feasible for these organizations to continue with the way that things are. And you know, he makes it quite clear. My personal opinion is that Riot should wake up and start responding faster to the Tier 2 crisis, because this is becoming a literal clown fiesta. And pretty strong words, but understandable words. And Taniz, formerly of NRG, comes out with his assessments here and you know, put some bullet points together really on why it's a big problem. The massive off-season, of course, is a major issue. There is an argument as well that many of these off-season tournaments, they're inviting Tier 1 teams, but not necessarily so many Tier 2 teams, which is causing a problem. This is another big one, I would say, that Ascension is after the World Championship. That can create a pretty big issue when players that would want to be trialed by VCT teams after champs, or even if they don't qualify for champs in that run up to the World Championship, they have still, you know, they're still on their rosters trying to get into the VCT. Most of them won't, but by that point it's possibly too late because other teams have already made changes, unless you're a real top player. So I think there's a good argument they should do it the other way around. End the season, the regular season, then do Ascension, then run the World Championship after that slightly later on. That the timing wise, that would make more sense, right? To have, you know, effectively the main World Championship be the last big event of the year. Maybe GC then still happens later, which is probably fine. But as he says, orgs just aren't even coming in. NA has barely any. EU has barely any. You know, some of the prize pools aren't even paid by the tournament organizers, right? Don't seem to care. And there's another good argument to say as well that the Game Changer scene, despite having talented players in there, they have no incentive to leave. And I think this is the point we made the other day, is that if you're a top Game Changers player, why would you even go to Tier 2? Because, okay, sure, you might play better competition, but you're going to be in a far worse supported ecosystem and make less money. So the motivation isn't there, right? If Riot would like to have players move from Game Changers to Tier 2 to Tier 1 to get to the VCT, the current pipeline just doesn't work for that at all. And I think it's a major problem. I mean, this another organization, Saw, Ascends, and now GoNext Gaming, that have achieved serious things and are now departing from the scene. So, you know, some big tweets, of course, hitting the timeline on this over the last couple of days. Big confirmations, though, going down yesterday, coming out of DRX. They confirmed Foxy9 is gone from the organization, and I think they were going to let him go anyway, but now it's Gen.G that have capitalized. So Foxy9's going to Gen.G. As we said yesterday, of the possible circumstances here, I feel like they've made a pretty wise choice. I like the decisions that Gen.G have gone for given the circumstances. Ideally, I think they would have kept Meteor. They haven't been able to. He's going to T1. But certainly the Foxy9 pickup, I really like it. I think he can be a top player this season. I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on. There is this as well from Victor. So if you guys remember, Victor the other day confirmed that he'd severely injured his left wrist and therefore couldn't trial and wasn't even able to play Valorant. Yesterday he confirmed he could finally play a deathmatch again, so it must have been pretty bad. I mean, you got to think, like, Victor's been unable to play any Valorant for like a month and a half, it seems, at this point. Maybe even longer, I don't know. So, yeah, Victor's back in deathmatch. Hopefully that means he can get back to, full strength very soon, but it's, of course, going to be a serious challenge. And just one final thing. There is a tournament coming up, and as the argument was made there by Tannis, like, maybe they could have invited some other teams that aren't necessarily tier 1 rosters, but the plan is as follows. This event is going to be middle of December, I believe, and the Pro Invitational is going to feature Zeta, Detonation Gaming, Leviatan, and then Fnatic with their new teams. So an exciting prospect there for sure, but as ever, very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.